Hey everyone, welcome to the Spotlight session today on the topic of intuition. And I am so excited because today I've got a very special guest. I'm Denise Litchfield, who is a teacher and a friend. And I'm just so excited to have her here. And of course, one of the reasons why this is a spotlight on intuition is this month I am launching the Lighthouse Oracle deck called Illuminate. And Denise, you might not know this, but I have to tell this story that you're actually one of the reasons why this deck is coming to life this year as it is, because earlier on this year I was having a session with Denise and we were talking about intuition and we were talking about practicing and playing in the space of this and talking about the Lighthouse Revolution. And Denise, you said to me, hey, I just wanted to ask, do you have an oracle deck? Because I think you should have one. And inside I went, because I had this deck that I'd started, that I created with the launch of the book like 18 months ago, and never really carried on with my plans to develop it further. And so when you asked me that question, it was just the nudge that I needed. And it was also that confirmation that what I had inside was bubbling there and waiting to be brought to life. So you've been, that conversation with you has been one of my anchors, because I just keep remembering, no, this is meant to come through, and I'm just here to make it happen. So I have to say thank you for that little nudge, which now has led to this big Kickstarter launch. So thank you so much. And thank you for being here to chat with us about the topic of intuition.
Intuition, wow. I do remember that session.
Do you?
Yeah, because when we were talking, it felt as I was doing it that you already had this deck like in your possession. So now, I don't know, maybe that's 6 months ago, I don't know when it was, but it's amazing how that's the seed, that's the little catalyst, and then it comes through and it actually is real. I just love that.
Yeah. And like I said, that's just been an anchor, because you said it so like, well, you should have a deck. And I was like, I want a deck. And it was probably actually almost a year ago. And it was one of those things I was like, I got to do it, and just never got around to. And then, not that long ago, I was like, you know what? Like, I have to show up and make this happen. And it's never going to be the perfect time. And so I'm just going to start. And and I've held on to that anchor that is something that was there just waiting to be brought to life. So thank you for that. I'm so excited.
Wow. I love it. I think you can't have enough oracle decks. I really don't. I think as a tool for intuition, they're amazing, because they will reflect something back to you that's already in your soul, that's already there. But, sometimes we can't see it. So when you pull a card, it's like, oh, yeah, and that helps you find your way. It does illuminate. It illuminates your path. Totally.
Absolutely. And you did that for me in our session,
right.
Where you reflected something that was there bubbling inside of me back to me. And I just think it's so important that we have, that in our life, that place to explore and to play. And Denise, one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you is because I think you are just such a beautiful advocate for people who are ready to explore, intuition or psychic gifts, or, even just that idea of connecting to something, bigger than what we thought possible. And you create such a safe place to do that. And you have such a clear, such a strong vibe of like, no nonsense, and be who you are. And you've created a safe place for me. And that's why I want to talk to you. So what motivates you? What's your why as far as, being that advocate for the importance of this aspect of our lives?
I think it's something that it's a luxury, actually. It's a 21st century luxury. I really do think. I was watching this great documentary on mountains last night. It's a movie. And the narrator was talking about how mountain climbing is a 21st century luxury, or, because, 100 years ago, people were just flat out busy surviving. Flat out getting through the day, and they didn't have, unless you were a monk or unless sequestered yourself in some way from the rest of the world, you didn't have the luxury of being able to connect to something greater than yourself. Or you were, and you were considered, that crazy lady down the road, or a witch, or, like there's all that story going on. And I think now is the best time for women to be able to connect, because we have that freedom. It's like we have the permission to do that. And it's part of us. It's part of our soul. And the big thing I teach, I think, my big why is that, psychic ability is an aspect of the soul, and we've all got one. So that means we can all be psychic. It's not this special thing that's only given to a few. It's part of us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have to say that was probably one of the big ahas for me when I first started to get to know you and to follow your work, was that exact message, that it's not like a special thing that only certain people have. We all have a soul. We all have intuition. We all have the capacity to strengthen, whatever we already notice about ourselves, or to explore it if we aren't even aware of it. And I have to say, I'm going to be putting these links below, but Denise has this fantastic quiz to help you learn like what your psychic strengths are. And doing that quiz was such a massive aha for me. And I've shared this story before, but I always have gotten messages through songs and quotes and lyrics and words, and never recognized those really for what they were until I did that quiz. And I was reading, I was like, what? Like, that's actually a thing. And it was like this moment of coming full circle back to myself. I could remember myself as like a teenager, recognizing that way more than I did as an adult. And anyways, I just wanted to say thank you for that, and ask actually if you have a tip or a strategy or something, someone who's maybe just ready to explore their intuition or their psychic strengths, where would you get them to start besides doing the quiz? Because I'm going to doing the quiz.
Yeah. Well, it's funny that you say full circle, because it often is the thing that is most natural to you, that comes most easily, that we often dismiss as, oh, well, that's just part of me. That's just who I am. That's just the way I am. But sometimes we forget that, hang on a minute, that's actually my superpower. That's actually, and then when you realize other people don't have that, you might know, there's no wonder that you are an author, because words are your thing. So of course you would hear words and you would notice words in songs and lyrics and things, because you're the word girl. So if someone is really creative and they love the visuals, then they're probably clairvoyant. They probably see images that are going to be messages. So again, it's kind of natural, and we just don't think about it in that way. And as soon as you kind of think, yeah, that could be me, that's a great door opener just to start. So that's one.
Well, I think just to interrupt you, just that affirmation that what is natural to you actually is, a gift. It is. You can tap into it and strengthen it. And most people, as you said, everybody has a soul, but most people don't really recognize those qualities. And so I think, that affirmation and that sort of recognition, that awareness is like so massive. And I love the fact that, it's like what you're here to do is just remind people of something that maybe no one else has let them realize or remember. So thank you for doing that.
Or be.
Yeah. Just be. So have you got a little tip or something you could share? What would be a great starting point for someone who maybe does the quiz and is like, oh yeah, I got messages that way, or what do we do next?
What next? Well, it's a bit like, if you want a six-pack, go to the gym, right? And psychic ability, intuition is like a muscle, and you do have to use it. And the best way to do it is actually playing with cards. Just grab a deck. And who doesn't have a deck of cards around the place? So one way that you can play with it, and I love the idea of play, because play means it's light and easy, and the lighter we can be, the more like, oh yeah, I'll just mess with this. Actually, the better your intuition is going to be. So playing with cards is fantastic. And all you need to do is just pick a card for a day and just put it somewhere, like, I've got my little altar at the back, or you put it somewhere in a special spot and just sit it there. That's it. Just pull a card and let it sit somewhere. And then at the end of the day, it might catch your eye again. And as you're looking at it, you might see something in that or notice the words that are written, and it might inform you of something that happened during the day or something that will be an insight to maybe a question that you had. And it's just as simple as that. It's not about, reading what the guidebook says and, sure, you can do that if you want, but the idea of playing and just getting accustomed to it, that's one really easy way.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. That you mentioned that idea of play too, because I know for myself, that was such a big thing for me, was just, when I first started to work with you and I first started to explore this space a bit more, this component of my lighthouse, I had to do that, give myself permission just to play, not to have it right, figured out, part of a plan. There's no steps. It was just perfect, free play and exploration, and that made a massive difference to me, just to give myself that permission.
Yeah.
And I want to add another little one that you teach and that made a difference to me, and that is to have a little journal or a notebook where you can keep track, because I've got mine right here as we're speaking. I've got this little notebook on my desk, and that's made a massive difference too, to keep track. And okay, let's just pause for a second. Like the amazing Denise Litchfield, who is so talented and so gifted, has a notebook where she keeps track.
Oh, yeah.
No matter where you're at.
Totally.
Oh,
totally.
Yeah.
I need to, because I call them gold star moments. So you can see the gold stars.
I love that.
And so when something turns out right, or something's like, I give myself a gold star, because I need to validate myself too. I don't think there's anyone in the world that doesn't need to still reassure themselves and go, yeah, that's right, it does work. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes a massive difference. Like I just found the more I acknowledged, anything that happened or anything I picked up on or any I knew that or anything like that, the more I acknowledged it by writing it down, the stronger it gets. The stronger, my capacity was, the more I would notice. It creates this wonderful snowball in a way of, gratitude and acknowledgement and celebration and strengthening. It's very cool. And it's such a simple thing.
And also the doubts, because we all doubt it when we first start. We all doubt it. And if you write it down, you can look back and you think, well, it can't all be coincidence.
Yeah, exactly. And the little things, that you begin to notice, instead of waiting for maybe these big aha moments, but it's all the little things, they add up, and they add up to those pieces of your soul. So I think that, I love the fact that you shared your notebook, because it just goes, it doesn't matter whether you're just maybe starting and to play in the place and maybe have your first oracle deck and your first, times really in the space, or whether you're years and years down the road. It's such a worthwhile exercise. Awesome. So how about for people who are maybe further on down the road, who, maybe someone like myself who is, been playing in the space of practicing intuition and tapping into, my natural gifts and working on, venturing into scary spaces of using them with people. And what could we do is, let's say we've got oracle decks, we've been playing in the space, we've been keeping track in our notebook, we're feeling more confident the way that our intuition works. How do we keep building it,
expand on it? Interesting, because I think when you start working in this space and you start playing in it, you become aware that there is a bit of a shift going on. You move into this sort of intuitive zone, and it's like an altered state of consciousness. You do kind of move into the zone a bit. And when you are playing with cards, or you're asking that question and you feel like that, oh yes, I'm feeling in the zone, then notice that everything you receive when you're in the zone is actually information. So like you said, if you hear the words of a song come through, or suddenly a bird chirps really loudly just as you're in the zone, just take it all in, because it's all information. And sometimes it will add up to being something really bizarre, but it will actually be relevant. Like an example, I recently I've been pushing myself for a new adventure in my business, and wondering, oh, have I got this? Is it okay? What am I doing? And I saw a license plate, and it was the initials of my grandfather. And my grandfather's been in spirit for many, many years, but he was a businessman, and he was a self-made businessman. So when I saw this bumper sticker, the registration plate of my my grandfather's initials, was like, yep, okay, I've got this, because I felt like he's with me. If he can do it, I can do it. So when you are in that zone, everything is part of the message, not just the card.
Yeah, I love that. And I love, that happens to me too. And that's what I've found. The more I've kept track of things and the more I've practiced and played and the more open I become to noticing those things, the more you notice them. It's like this beautiful snowball, that just keeps building and building. And I had a similar thing happen to me actually this week as well, where I was working on this but challenge, with my community, overcoming these barriers that are stopping us from doing the things that we want to do. Yeah. And one of mine was, but I wasn't sure whether to do this or whether to do that. And so I recognized what I was waiting for, and I recognized why I was resisting. And then I said, this is what I'm waiting for, help. I need help. What I realize is I'm not sure about these two choices. And within hours, I got a random message out of the blue from someone I hadn't heard from in weeks and weeks, and said, I just got this idea that I had to tell you something. And it was totally related to the question I asked. And I just laughed. I was like, you know what? Thank you. But those things wouldn't happen if you didn't have the willingness to just recognize and put it out there and actually say it out loud.
Yeah. And play and just go, well, let's just see how this
goes. What happens. Yeah. Permission to play. And one of the things I just love about the work that you do and the message you do is, as you said, it's not about being special. It's not like certain people have been gifted this ability. Everybody has it. It's just how we choose to use it and be aware of it. But I loved your down-to-earth vibe, and how, you say you don't have to wear crushed purple velvet, and you don't have to, set the mood, and, unless you want to, like, it's just your permission to be who you are and to do it your way. And that's such a big part of, what I teach with the Lighthouse as well.
Yeah, I think so. Always it's been like that for me. I mean, I lived in Byron Bay for so long. I had enough crushed purple. I think I probably overdosed in crushed purple velvet up there. That might be what it is. But I just think that, because intuition is accessible to everyone. So we can be normal. We can just be who we are and still have a psychic gift.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't have to be a special sort of woo-woo kind of person or be into certain things. You can just, play yourself. Yeah. So with as one of the reasons we're chatting is because I'm so excited to be sharing this information along with the launch of the Oracle deck. And you mentioned, that that's a great place for people who are just kind of starting to play and explore to use a deck. And I love what you said about that idea that, the message that you see is just a reflection of what you already know and what's inside of you. What about people who maybe have been playing with decks for a while and, I'd love for them to get another one and to have some, another choice on hand. But have you got like a tip or an idea, something you could share for somebody who's maybe using decks? What's a way that we could stretch ourselves with our own,
to go further with the deck?
To go further with the deck.
Yeah. Look, especially if you've been playing for a while, you've probably messed around with doing a few readings, maybe for friends, like what girl doesn't do that with their girlfriends? Like, I don't know anyone who doesn't do that. So, doing a reading for someone else is something that's very natural. It's a natural next step. And when I teach how to do this, I talk about how there's 3 different levels of reading a card, 3 different sort of steps, if you like. And when we first start out, we think, it's all about the card, you know, and we're staring at the card and we're reading the guidebook, and it's kind of a little bit mechanical, and we think, okay, the answer is in the card because, you know, that's what we're supposed to be doing. And that's fine. You still have great success with that. And then after a while, you think, oh, actually, you know what? I'm reading a card for a person. I'm going to include them. And you start to tune into the person you're reading for. And I guess your awareness broadens just from being on the card to maybe the card and the person. And then you start to get more information that includes the person. So I'd like to say you go from reading the cards to reading the person as well, with the card as a prop or a jump start or a catalyst. And you might not even look at the book at this stage. You might just be drawn to one little aspect in the card, or just the word, or just that top corner where that color is, and you're inspired to say something, or something just reminds you, and you're off and you find yourself just saying something, it's falling out of your mouth and you don't really know where it came from, yet the person is going, oh my God, right? And that's reading the person as well as the card. And then the third step is where we have the card simply as a reminder. So we're really in tune with the person, but the card's there, and you might flip one over every now and again and look at it as the catalyst. And then that's like the third step. So there's a spectrum of playing with all of them. None of them are wrong or right. They're just a way to maybe transform or progress along with how you use them. And then actually I have to say that one of my teachers, he's been doing this for 30 years, and he got up to a public demonstration with 300 people and he had a deck of cards with him. And I've never seen him do this before. And he just flipped a card every now and again. And as he flipped it, you could see him go, oh, and blah, 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 blah. So he was using it as a catalyst. And I was so impressed by that.
Oh, I love that. Thank you for sharing that story.
Mm.
I love, first of all, that it's, an absolute acknowledgement that how you do it is your way. There are no rules. And that's one of the things that I, have been teaching during this launch of the Oracle deck as well, is there's lots of different ways to do it, lots of different ways to use cards. It's about permission to play and to do it your way. But what I also love is, again, that acknowledgement that no matter where you're at in your journey, it's okay to use that. I've had, some people almost sort of make like it's, once you're beyond that, you don't need cards anymore, and they're just props or they're just crutches. And I think that's kind of unfair, because if it's something you love to use, if it's something that helps you just to, get in that space or zone in on what you wanted to say, then use them like however you want to use them. I think is beautiful when your intention is really about tapping into your own inner knowing and shining your light in the world.
Absolutely.
However you do it is your choice. Absolutely.
And it's not like, and I understand that, because there is a certain amount of snobbery, I guess, that some people can, tarot cards better than oracle cards, and this type is better than that type. In the end, what I learned from my teacher is that he was using all of the tools in his tool bag. And that's essentially what a master does. I mean, I'm looking at your lighthouse, and you've got all these components of the lighthouse, and together they illuminate. Together they ignite your light, but you couldn't have one without the other. And I think that's, we forget about that. We get stuck in the status of it. So actually, what are we here to do? We're here to illuminate our souls and maybe illuminate the soul of another person.
Yeah. And however you get, your message, however you get that feeling of connection and inner knowing, or the inner voice that you hear, however you want to word it, is totally whatever works for you. As you said, some people will notice the visuals and the images. Other people, like myself, notice words and hear, words will just pop into my head. And some people feel things, in their body. Some people just know things, it's just like they just know it. And when you recognize the way that your intuition, works for you, you can just play with that and play in that space. And again, that's one of the things that, was such a great aha for me, was recognizing that I knew the importance of music in my life, but recognizing it as part of how my intuition works and how my own, psychic gifts work was massive. And when I was writing my book, Lighthouse Revolution, I started a playlist of music that sort of informed all of these components and helped me to really explore them. And that music playlist has been a massive part of my life the past 3 years. But now I actually use that even as an oracle deck. I can, I can have something that I'm struggling with. I can have a question in my head. I can have, something I want to explore, and I can let the music guide me.
It's giving me goosebumps. That's fantastic.
Yeah. And when I share that story with people, I have a lot of people go, oh, I never even thought of that. But how many times do you get in a car and a song comes on and it's like, exactly. And so recognize that, and that, musical oracle deck, or if, different scents mean something to you, and essential oils, use them, crystals, use them. It doesn't,
absolutely,
colors,
it's stunning.
anything.
And when you are in the zone, it all becomes like that. It all becomes another way of informing you, and that's when you're in the third zone, and that's just great. And we do hop in there every now and again. We have those amazing spontaneous, oh my God, and then hopefully we sort of learn to recognize that more and more, and we stay more and more, or that zone becomes a lot more accessible to us.
Yeah. And that's for sure what I would say. The more I've practiced and played, the more it's just becoming, I guess, more second nature, more natural, rather than having to, do a meditation, get in the zone. I mean, no, you don't always have time to do that.
No, you don't.
And, the point is to get us to that place where it really is just, a part of who we are. We can tap into it as we want to.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. And again, that's why I think, that the way that you teach and the work you do is so important, because it's pure permission to just be who you are and to play in that space. And it's such a big part of who we are. And if we don't acknowledge that, if we don't play in that space, then it's always feels like there's a little piece missing, I think.
Yeah, it feels empty. It does. Yeah. And I think when you come to that spot, when you do sense that, there's something more, that's when you're ready to start exploring. When you feel that, there's got to be something more, then that's when you go and buy your first deck. That's maybe when you're drawn to a book that, might fall into your lap, or you might see, because you're ready.
Yeah, absolutely. I always tell people, when I started to talk about the lighthouse as a framework of what we could actually build so that we could shine our light in the world, there were 6 components. And the more I explored, all of these sort of pieces of the actual lighthouse, the more I began to ask that question. There's something missing. There's a piece that doesn't fit yet. And it was a song, actually, that came on. I was out walking one day and a song came on, and I went, that's it. And the final piece for me was this idea of the sky, that connection to the source of our light, that connection to something bigger than us that we could tap into, and that we all have. We just need to remember it's there. So for me, I had to build the other pieces first, and then I was ready for the next. And I think other people maybe have that bit in spades, and maybe there's some other parts that they have to work on. But it's always interesting to me. And again, for me, it was coming back full circle to the things I already knew, but just forgot somewhere along the way.
Always.
Thank you so much. Is there any, if there was anyone listening out there who is thinking, this sounds like kind of neat, I could come and I could play in this space, is there something you'd want them to know about, a final, sort of reminder for them around playing in the space of intuition or exploring your psychic gifts?
Yeah, I think it's easier than you think. It really is. It's easier than you think. And I always like to talk about the Dorothy principle and, the final scenes of The Wizard of Oz, and where, the Glinda, the witch, says, you had the power all along. And if you realize that the power is always, always with you, then you can't mess up. There's no way you can mess up.
Oh,
Yes.
Goosebumps.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you
pleasure.
so much for being here to share those ideas with us and those practical strategies, along with a whole lot of inspiration. For anybody watching the video, as I said, the links to find Denise are below. You've got to go to her website and try the quiz. You know, I'm a big fan of it just because, you know, just to learn a bit more about yourself, I think, is the very first starting point to being a lighthouse. You got to learn you, and you got to know what lights you up and how your light works. But also she has this amazing space on Facebook called the Psychic Playground, and it's such a beautiful, safe place to have these conversations and to explore. So I encourage you to check that out as well. Thank you, Denise, for being here. Thank you for being part of the launch of the Lighthouse.
Yes, how exciting.
Which you nudged me to get onto for once and for all, and for being a big part of my journey as well. It's been an honor to have you as both a friend and a teacher on this journey, and I thank you for the work that you do in the world, the light you're here shining in the world.
I can't wait to see them. I can't wait. It'll be so exciting. Yay. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for being here, part of our spotlight on intuition.